The law is very complicated, even more so when you understand that a lot of laws are subject to interpretation. So when a jury gets to decide a case and they go back into that deliberation room, how is it that they know what the law actually is? How are they supposed to understand all the nuances in the law in each individual statute, how those statutes interpret and interplay with one another, and really make a just and right decision? It's an interesting question, and it's what we're talking about on this week's video, so stick around. Happy Friday, everybody, and Happy New Year. Happy 2024. I hope everybody had a very festive, fun, and safe holiday season and are getting ready to do really big things in this new year. So like I said in the intro, today we're talking about how a jury can understand and figure out how to make decisions based on the law. A lot of times laws in which are very complicated, they are multi-pronged, multifaceted. It's difficult for even trained lawyers to read statutes and to interpret statutes. So how is a jury supposed to do that? Well, the way that it works is when a jury is selected, one of the first things that a judge will explain to them is, I, as the judge, will instruct you on the law. In other words, the judge is in charge of making sure that the jury members understand exactly what the law is. And the judge tells that to jury members up front so that during the course of the trial, the jury can really focus and pay attention on what witnesses are saying, what evidence is being presented, and their most crucial job, determining which of those witnesses and which pieces of that evidence are they going to put their trust in or put their faith in. The case law will say they are the sole adjudicators of the credibility of the witnesses, meaning they are the only ones that can decide that witness is lying, that witness is telling the truth, I believe that witness, I don't believe that witness. So during the actual trial phase, that's their main priority, is to try to figure out which witnesses they believe, which witnesses come across as credible or believable. They shouldn't be worried about what the law is. That comes later. So after the trial is concluded, then the juries get very detailed, very specific information about what the law is. This comes in the form of what's known as the jury charge or the jury instructions, depending on what jurisdiction you're in. They call it different things. But at the end of the day, it's all basically the same thing. It is typically a packet of information. And when I say packet, I mean about 50 or 60 pages that go in detail about specific instructions that the jury is to be given regarding what the law is. These jury instructions, these jury charges will have everything from definitions of key legal terms that they might have encountered into the trial. It will have advice, and it will have instruction on how jurors are supposed to weigh certain portions of evidence or testimony. Let's say there was character evidence that was introduced. There will be instructions on here's how you are supposed to consider that testimony. It will have step-by-step instructions on exactly what the law is. For example, if it is a trial over murder, it will lay out specifically what the elements are of murder and what the state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, in some jurisdictions, it even defines what a reasonable doubt is. Some jurisdictions don't. Like in state court in Texas, judges and jury instructions are not allowed to define reasonable doubt. But in federal court, they are. And a definition for reasonable doubt is given in almost every single case. So these instructions are given to the jury. But where do these instructions come from? Well, prior to them being presented to the jury, the lawyers, both the lawyers for the government the lawyers for the defendant, and the judge all meet and have what's called a charge conference. A charge conference is basically a hearing outside of the presence of the jury where the lawyers all argue, debate, discuss what instructions should or should not be included in that jury charge, in those jury instructions. And this is one of those battles, this is one of those litigation areas where most people that aren't lawyers or that aren't involved in this process on a day-to-day basis, they don't realize this happens, but it can be one of the most important aspects of any trial. These jury instructions can be vital to having a jury side the way that you want them to. Like I've talked in several of my videos about how winning a jury trial is as much about psychology as it is about the law, at least in my opinion. And psychology in figuring out what is going to convince these 12 strangers, what is going to sway these 12 strangers, what comes down to is how the question is framed to them, right? So the way that a jury charge is worded can make all the difference in the world. A jury instruction that tells them this is what you need to do to find a person guilty is different than a jury instruction that reads, this is what you need to do to find a person not guilty, right? I mean, just the simple framing of that question changes the way that a jury feels about a particular case. So these charge conferences are incredibly important. They are sometimes very heated, very impassionately argued by both sides, where the state is trying to include language that they think is beneficial to them. The defense is trying to include language that they think is beneficial to them. Both sides are trying to exclude language that the other side wants. And then eventually the judge rules on that and they issue the final jury instructions, and that is what the jury uses to base their decision. So it's incredibly important. So like I've said before, this is one of those topics that you could go into a whole lot more depth on. You could talk about for a whole lot more, but simply put, there's just no reason to do that here in a YouTube video. So as always, if this is something that interests you, if this is a topic that you want to hear more on, every Sunday, again, starting back up now that we're through the holiday season, every Sunday evening, I'll be streaming live on Twitch. You can come by the live stream, ask whatever questions you have, discuss this or any other legal topic or any other life topic that you want to discuss, and I'd be happy to talk with you about any of that stuff over there. So I look forward to seeing you guys all next week, all next Friday. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you have a great week. And until I see you again, be good and stay on the right side of the bars.